and our guest in the studio today, sitting alongside me, is Emma Barber, the Director of D-Grade. Thank you very much for coming on Ducab Daily.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
One of the things that you brought in is your shirts, and I love this story, that some of the work you do with D-Grade.
Yep, 100% plastic bottles. Really what we do at D-Grade is we repurpose the polyester that's already in a plastic bottle and we turn it into textiles.
Because when we recycle plastic, we think it's just the plastic that's been recycled.
When we make a recycled polyester top, by repurposing the plastic in PET, we don't use any oil, we save 20% water, 50% energy, and we produce 55% fewer carbon emissions than compared to making a conventional polyester top.
Hello and welcome to Ducab Daily. My name's Lachlan Kitchen. Great to have your company here for another episode of Series 2 of the podcast. On today's episode, we're going to discuss the topic of solutions for plastic pollution. It's a great title, but it's also a big problem. And our guest in the studio today, sitting alongside me, is Emma Barber, the Director of D-Grade. Thank you very much for coming on Ducab Daily.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
The solution for plastic pollution, it's been a problem for decades. Are we any closer to finding a solution for this problem?
I think there's two schools of thought. I mean, there's the school of thought that we are overwhelmed by plastic and it's just getting worse and worse. And then there's the school of thought that actually plastic is a very, very tiny percentage of pollution in general. When you think about construction waste, textile waste, and also the fact that plastic isn't just one commodity, it's made up of lots of different things. So when you look at PET plastic, what people always talk about, the plastic bottles, that's a really tiny percentage of the issue. So actually, no, plastic is not a huge problem. And yes, we are closer to solving that issue because we can now recycle plastic and do lots of things with it.
Yeah, because growing up, the whole idea of plastic was that it was better because we could recycle. But obviously those PET plastic bottles that got so much of the attention is only a small part of the problem, given there's so many other forms of plastic. One of the things that you brought in is your shirts, and I love this story, that some of the work you do with D-Grade. Can you tell me about that? Is that made out of recycled plastic and reused waste?
Yep, 100% plastic bottles. Really what we do at D-Grade is we repurpose the polyester that's already in a plastic bottle and we turn it into textiles. Because polyester is a really important fabric. There's about 65 million tonnes of it made every year. Almost none of that's made from actually recycling PET. So what we're doing is we're making conventional polyester using all the resources. We're making plastic bottles using all the resources and then really throwing both things at the end of life away when we should be repurposing the plastic and making the polyester.
Are you able to say how many bottles go into a t-shirt?
It's about 16. It depends on the size of the t-shirt and the size of the bottle, but on average we say about 16.
And what's the time frame to turn that around?
Well, what we do is we collect the plastic, which can take time. So there's lots of different steps. We have to then turn the plastic into the fibre, and the fibre into the yarn, and then the yarn into the product. But if we're working with a company who wants a uniform, we normally say 45 days.
It's a great strategy when we're trying to minimise our waste and sort of reduce that plastic pollution problem that we face. What are some of the other great technologies or innovations that you're aware of within the industry?
Well, I mean, there's lots of companies doing what we do. So if you go into your favourite sports brand to want to buy sports kit, they're all doing it. They're making their sports kits from recycled plastic. And then there's also companies like Adidas with their Parley range, making footwear and using ocean plastic. And that's quite a difficult thing to do, use ocean plastic and make it into something new because it's brittle and hard to work with. So, there's lots of innovation going on. And just in terms of plastic itself, companies are really building into the design of the product to make it lighter weight, so there's less plastic being used, and it's more recyclable and all those things.
Because suddenly you're going away from a generation before where this was more a CSR, sort of to be socially responsible, but now we're getting into that time frame of it's actually cost effective to have some of these practices.
Oh, completely. Plastic is a great resource. I mean, it's low carbon footprint because it's such a lightweight material, and it's cheap to make, and it's very easy and eco-friendly, let's say, to recycle it.
So how can reducing waste lead to cost savings or cost-saving strategies within a business?
Well, companies that provide packaging or products in plastic packaging, they, by making the plastic lighter, they're using less resources. So, of course, there's a cost saving there. And just in general, if they by designing packaging so it fits the product better, and there's lots of cost savings you can make just by thinking about the design of the packaging.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the challenges, that you're also As businesses, we have a responsibility, that CSR. But how much of the responsibility comes down to the company, and how much of it does it really come down to an industry and a government in regards to legislation?
I mean, that's such a great question, because plastic pollution is not down to the company that makes the plastic. It's down to the person that throws that item away irresponsibly. I always say people are cynical and people are lazy, and I completely include myself in that. Especially in this region, people think, oh, it's not being recycled, so why should I bother? And also there is an element of, oh, I can't really be bothered to use the right bin. Because, if you drive a car and you dump it in the desert, is that Ford's fault that you've left the car there? No. If you take your bottle of soda into the desert and leave it there, is it that company's fault? No, it's your fault. So humans and people have to take responsibility for this whole issue of pollution.
Yeah, you say humans are lazy. I think it's more we go towards convenience.
Yeah, we're a convenience-driven society.
And I think you're right about some of those initiatives. My parents in Australia, they have 4 bins when it's bin night to be able to, the plastics and the paper and being able to sort everything. What are some of the more positive aspects that you've seen here within Dubai and also the UAE when it comes to this solution of plastic pollution?
Well, you'd be amazed. I mean, the waste management companies are doing amazing jobs to try and upgrade their sorting facilities locally. So actually, in theory, you don't really need 4 bins. While I take my hat off to the people that do go to those lengths, as long as you keep your organic food and organic matter away from your recyclables, the waste management companies here, they can take your recyclables and sort them into up to 40 different waste streams, all of which at the end can be bought by companies who recycle, such as Degrade buying the plastic, and they will be recycled. So as long as we are taking some kind of effort to split our food and our recyclables, there's so much wonderful stuff going here with the recycling company, with the waste management companies.
Yeah, and I think that's the idea that we can often think it's someone else's problem. Oh, the company are going to recycle, the building will recycle, but it really starts and begins with us. Your experience, what are some of the most positive impacts that you've seen when it comes down to waste minimisation?
So we really understand that education is key. And what we did in 2017 was set up our outreach programme, which is called Simply Bottles. And we work with schools, we work with businesses, and we go to events, and we just try and talk to people and educate students and staff, employees about why they should recycle. And some of the impacts we've had from just our Simply Bottles outreach programme, collecting plastic from the schools, making companies, realise that they need to put in special recycling bins, and huge impacts. And we can measure the savings by collecting plastic and recycle it. We save water, we save energy, we save carbon emissions, and we don't use any oil. And all those things are measurable, so we can provide impact reports.
Let's go through that again, because I think that's a really key point. Because when we recycle plastic, we think it's just the plastic that's been recycled, but really it's the entire ecosystem that's getting a benefit.
Exactly. I mean, when we make a recycled polyester top, by repurposing the plastic in PET, we don't use any oil, we save 20% water, 50% energy, and we produce 55% fewer carbon emissions than compared to making a conventional polyester top.
Yeah, which is impressive.
Yeah.
But who sets those targets, or are they self-imposed?
Well, the targets are measurable because we're just comparing like with like. So we know what a conventional T-shirt, how much water it takes to make it, how much energy it takes. So there's nobody imposing a target. But if you're a company and you need uniforms, instead of making them conventionally and you make them from recycled polyester, you can show your shareholders, your stakeholders, that you're actually saving all of these very significant.
So it's a cost-saving benefit. It's not just a case you've got to try and say to your shareholders, oh, we're making thousands of shirts and look what we're doing for the environment, but then you're going to get the answer, but if it's costing us 10 times as much, there's going to be there's going to be
some pushback.
Some pushback.
But it's not costing 10 times as much.
But that's the issue, It can sometimes be more cost-effective.
We're not necessarily cheaper. We're not necessarily more expensive. We can pretty much match conventional pricing, but we can provide an impact report for these shareholders or stakeholders, and the companies can say to them, look, last year we saved this much water, we saved this much energy by making our uniforms sustainably.
Yeah, and that's the idea of sustainability. Emma, what are you most excited about when it comes down to this solution of plastic pollution and sustainability here in Dubai and the UAE?
Well, the fast fashion industry, textiles in general, is such an incredibly polluting industry. So what excites me is the fact that what we can do is we can provide an alternative to that, and we can also provide an end-of-life solution. So if somebody's buying tons of uniforms, and I mean sometimes they might buy them by the ton because they're huge workforces, those uniforms at the end of life, they can't be used anymore, but they can still be recycled if they're made from polyester, which almost all uniforms are. So I'm very excited about the things that are going on here in terms of this whole closed loop economy. That's a very positive thing for the future.
Well, if anything, Amber, your passion for this is addictive. And I love that you are able to embrace what is something that is just for the greater good, provides solutions for businesses that are cost effective, but is also providing solutions for the planet. And I think that's something you should be congratulated for.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
It's a pleasure.
My thanks to Emma Barber, the director of D-Grade, our guest for this episode of Season 2 of Ducab Daily, as we've discussed solutions for plastic pollution. I'm Lachlan Kitchen, and we look forward to your company on the next episode of Season 2 of Ducab Daily.